Hello, it's Kyle from Oceans Apart. I'm joined with Ash from Oceans Apart, and this is something new we're deciding to do in the lockdown. So it's a new sort of podcast touching on all things music. And the first one we're going to really touch on is the kind of the unsigned music scene in general, be it local and kind of nationwide. So I guess that's the first thing we're going to touch on. So welcome, Ash.
Hello, how are you, Kyle? You okay, mate?
I'm all right. How you doing in the lockdown?
Yeah, good, good. I mean, obviously, being in a band with you, you know that it's been pretty difficult in terms of
Yeah.
musicians. But yeah, I suppose we'll talk about that a little on a later date. But yeah, I'm good in myself. I'm looking forward to today's chat.
Cool. So I guess where do we start on unsigned music scene? I guess you need a band, really, don't you?
Exactly. I mean, it all starts there. Unless you're a solo artist, you need to get them members together that you feel you've got that element of trust with and share similar interests to and have the same sort of work ethic, or even just from a younger age sometimes it can stem from just being friends and you all have an interest in music, I suppose.
Well, I guess that kind of falls onto you, like this band, like you guys, what yourself, Leon, Kyle, have
Yeah,
known each other since from the Warning days. So that was
yeah.
the
I mean, we literally grew
going
grew yeah,
into
we
kids.
grew up with each other and we just knew each other as people, and obviously the other members of the band are my cousins, and yeah, it just sort of got together like that. We all had an interest in live music. We used to go to gigs and stuff like that, and it just sort of fell into a band, and we got on with it and enjoyed it as youngsters. I mean, it's a project I certainly am not embarrassed of, because it was a great part of my life, and I wouldn't be in this band with you today, Kyle, if it weren't for them. So
No,
yeah.
it's all about going on a journey, ain't it? In any kind of
Mm,
bands and stuff like that. So with
yeah.
with general being unsigned, obviously you're up against the odds against how many bands are doing it. Like in kind of our experiences, how have you found kind of setting up that band when it comes into kind of is it a hobby? Is it more than more of a hobby? Does that
Wow.
feed
Yeah.
into kind of do you straight away start thinking of money in the band, or
Mm.
did it start out just complete fun?
To be honest with you, that's a great question, mate. I mean, when we was started myself in my first band, Formal Warning, as a youngster, we started just playing covers at pubs, and we were sort of getting paid in either money or drinks, or sometimes even food. Like, would get given meals to play, and we were just doing covers. I suppose that's a very good question in terms of. I think you can bracket it really. I think you get sort of, okay, I'm going to be a cover act. I'm here to earn money. Okay, I'm an unsigned act that is looking to try and get somewhere or make this my profession. Or you just get, okay, I'm in a band because I enjoy making music. I know these are my friends and this is just a hobby, you know. Um, I like to see Oceans Apart and us ourselves. I'm pretty sure you agree with me, is the second category of actually really trying to get our names out there and do something. And you are right, there's so much competition at the minute, and there's so many people doing the same thing that sort of what separates you from anybody else. But yeah, definitely, I would say it goes in brackets of you're either a covers act that enjoys doing it, get some money, some drinks, or you're that middle bracket that really wants to push, really wants to drive. And
Yeah,
as much as it might be unrealistic, because it sometimes is a needle in a haystack job to make it as a musician
of course.
professionally. But yeah, I would
I guess
agree
you got
that.
to have a bit of both, like the drive to kind of want to try and make something of it,
Yeah,
uh, and then knowing if you're on that side, knowing that's going to cost, but
of
not
course.
making it 100% business, and then you fall out of love of being in a band.
That can easily happen. That can easily happen. I mean, not even bands I've been in myself, but just from talking bands to bands on the scene, as you very well know, Kyle, when you get playing gigs yourself, you speak to people and stuff like that. The financing in a band can always be either a problem or a hindrance, or you're just on different end of the scales sometimes, to even members that I don't know, you've got yourselves or over the years. And I think financing a band is a key thing that should be spoken about before you even get into it if you're looking to get somewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Like if like for new bands and young bands kind of starting up, uh, kind of have that sort of that. I guess not chat, but knowing where everyone stands on the if it's being cut between certain people, you don't want to fall into kind of a bad vibe straight away when you're starting a new band.
No.
So if you are really driving to try and make it, then things will cost. So like I guess that's just kind of the idea of keeping that in mind, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, even if you fall into category 3 that I mentioned earlier of it being a hobby, I've never known a free hobby unless it's sort of running around the park.
Well,
So
that's very true as well.
yeah, I think everything in life costs, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, music is just one of them games that falls into that category as well.
yeah, it's definitely dangerous being into the production side of things like myself as well. So like
Yeah,
being a drummer in a band, so you've got all the band things and then also doing production as well. It can get expensive, but you do it because you love it. So
exactly. I mean,
that's
I
kind of the
mean,
main thing.
I can't imagine the sort of outlay that you're having, because not only have you got the outlay of somebody who plays an instrument, you've got the outlay of a home built studio as
Yeah,
well, which brings me on to a question I wanted to ask you really. I mean, what
yeah,
what do you think's important in terms of sort of recordings and recording strategies for these new bands? Because I suppose once you set up a band, if you are in category 2 or 3 or even 1, sometimes you want to record and show people what you sound like doing these covers. What what would you advise, sort of? I know home recording is becoming very popular in this day and age,
yeah, yeah.
but
Like
but
I guess that's what
you're more of a
we fall into
yeah
that trap really. Kind of, do we really need to go to a studio? With my setup and obviously everything we've released as this band has been
hmm
done at my place. So
yeah
it kind of just when it falls onto kind of where like where do I go? Can I do it at home? Can I not? It's all about having that kind of, I guess it sounds a bit cliche, but having the will of, if I want to record myself, I can do that.
yeah
When I
of
first
course
started this, when I was recording, obviously even back to your days with Formal Warning, we
yeah
tried to record. I was like 14 back then, so
yeah
it didn't turn out the best that it could have been because I was clueless generally
mm,
back then what I was doing. So
yeah
it's kind of a mixture of, if you kind of practice enough, you buy some relatively, like, home recording stuff now is relatively cheap. You can set up a studio for the
yeah
best part of £300, and you'll have something that will be releasable. But it's having that will of, I want to learn about EQs, I want to learn about compression and effects and stuff like that, and techniques. As soon as you pick
yeah
that up, you can get away without spending. You don't have to spend like 10 grand anymore on
yeah
a recording, on
on
an
an
album.
album. Definitely. I mean, because obviously bands I've been in the past, sort of I was in a band called the Reckless Youth and Formal Warning, but with both of those, I mean, we went to sort of producers that had produced people that have made it and things like this and things like that. And sometimes from listening to the quality of recordings that these home studios are firing out now compared to the quality of what we're paying for, I think it's getting closer and closer
It's
by the
very
day.
close these days.
And I think you're just paying more for the name when you go into these guys at the minute. In my humble opinion, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not talented guys, because they're absolutely talented and
Well,
they've got big studios for a
they've got
reason.
yeah, exactly. They've got to the big studio, the big name for a reason
Yeah,
because of
y-
their talents. But like
yeah,
you were saying, there's a very fine line in my mind now that
yeah.
you can pull it off yourself if you really try.
I mean, I know this touches a little bit on sort of a signed artist here, but look, let's look at Billie Eilish, man. I watched a documentary the other day, and the size of the bedroom she recorded this album with, and how many Grammys did she win? Didn't she like have a clean
5, I
sweep of
think. Yeah.
everything that she could do? Yeah,
There
and
you
like
go.
it was made in the smallest bedroom possible.
Yeah,
So
it was just her and her brother in a bedroom.
yeah, I
Like,
don't get me wrong. I look at all these studios, some of the studios, and think, wow, look at all them instruments. Look at all the amps they've got to play with. Look at this and look at that. But then, really, is that snobbery? Do you need to get to the point that you just sit and listen to the track with your eyes closed and go, well, there's not much between them. So
yeah. Right,
you know.
and I think you can get away with the fact that if your recording really does sound like a bedroom recording, like you've set
Yeah,
up one mic or you've put your phone in a room, you're
yeah,
probably not going to get away with releasing that, and people, happily listen to it.
of
But
course. Yeah,
if it's a semi-pro balanced mix and master, you can pretty much get away with it
yeah.
without
No, I
having to
definitely
spend
agree, mate.
2 grand on like 3 days in a recording studio.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I've heard recordings myself that I've listened to and gone, oh, you know what, the song's actually got it. The song is really good, but the production just lacks. You know, you can tell they've done it themselves because they've probably not got the finances. Touching back on what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, to do this, or they've had the conversation, set the budget as a band, and the recordings are just not up to that standard. So in my opinion, then that is a band that probably does need to seek an engineer to do that job. You
Yeah.
know, if you can't do it to a standard yourself, but
Yeah, I think it touches on too. If you physically can't do it to a standard yourself, but that will come over time. Like you'll learn and learn. I've got to a point where I'm still learning. I still
yeah,
want to get to like like name dropping a few, but like Dan Lancaster and Romash and stuff.
yeah,
They're two really good producers that I look up to, and
yeah,
they're the sort of the standards I'm trying to get with our stuff, but at a
yeah,
fraction of the price. So we're not having to kind of fork out a lot of money, but
yeah.
not not losing the quality at the same time.
Of course. No, I completely agree with you, mate. And I just think you make a great point. Um, in terms of sort of, you know, you want to get as close to that professional standard as you can as a producer yourself. And the plus is that you're in a band to sort of practice that with a lot of the time. And the plus for the band like us guys is we obviously get free recordings and get
Oh
to come
yeah,
in and demo. And you know our recording strategies anyway. We sort of
yeah,
come in and you generally get a lot of the music down. Um,
yeah. I guess
it,
I
it
guess I guess the way we work as a band, it's be it any of the musicians or even yourself will come up with a synth idea or anything like that, or like
mhm,
Jordan will come up with a riff idea,
yeah,
kind of get it down, or I'll write for kind of full songs, and then obviously we'll come in with yourself, demo vocals.
yeah,
I find in the recording strategy kind of side of things, I always try and get any sort of demo stuff down to very close to what would be releasable. There's no
yeah,
point kind of jamming a quick sort of like demo with a vocal riff and just make it sound bad for the sake of doing it quick as a demo.
yeah.
If you get the demo sort of stuff very close to, I could release this now, then you won't have much of a headache kind of when it comes
When
to
it
like
comes to it, that no, that's really
tweaking and
interesting to
mixing and
know.
stuff like that.
That's really interesting to know because obviously being in your band, we sort of receive the file on Dropbox, and like you say, it's always a pretty decent standard when we get it. And it's crazy that our band work like that because there are some bands, even bands I've been in the past, that sort of send a riff to each other that's recorded on something like GarageBand, and then they get down practice and turn it into a song. I still know bands that prefer working that way, but I
Yeah,
suppose we are a very very studio based band
we
actually, aren't we?
we are, yeah, like we feel like we craft any idea in the studio that then take it to the practice room
Yeah,
and
yeah,
kind of go through it as a band instead of
yeah.
going to a studio as a five and writing a song there and then. Like we personally don't work like that, do we?
No, no, and that's a really interesting topic. I mean, anybody who's listening, it'd be great to even hear what you guys do. You know, if you could, because I'm guessing we're going to be putting this on some kind of platform, maybe YouTube,
Yeah, yeah,
Kyle, and
yeah. Obviously, this
yeah,
is very new, ain't it? So
yeah,
between the two of us for the band is we're staying busy in lockdown. So I guess it will
yeah,
be YouTube, maybe Facebook as well. So yeah,
brilliant,
we want to hear from other unsigned bands and local bands and
yeah,
kind of in the scene, and
yeah. I
hear
mean,
hear their points.
it'll be great, obviously, if you can comment on anything we've spoken about today or speak or going to speak about, and just let us know your thoughts and sort of how you do things, or if you disagree with us, or just let us know, because we're learning every day as well. I suppose it's that's why we're an unsigned act. We're just the same as anybody else, really,
Yeah,
just trying to achieve the same thing. So yeah, definitely. I mean, moving on
yeah.
to another point I wanted to raise today is
Yeah.
sort of uh, what's your opinion on sort of social media for unsigned acts at the minute, KP? Do you think it's being very made very hard for unsigned acts to
Uh,
sort of network themselves, or do you just
I'm,
think,
I personally think it's harder to get like, again, a cliche sort of comment, but harder to get seen by labels and stuff like that. But do you really need a label these days? So I
mm,
personally think socials, even though there's loads and loads of bands now kind of
yeah,
doing it, like they're on socials, they've got videos, everyone's doing the same thing.
yeah,
But I do, on the flip side of that, I do think socials can be are a very, very powerful thing. Like, you can pick up some traction and fans, from different places of the
yeah,
world through social media. So I think
yeah,
if you can platform yourself right on social media, and we're still learning as an unsigned band how
yeah,
to kind of crack social media.
yeah,
And I find our personal platform is Instagram. We do better on Instagram. That's more
yeah. We
interaction
seem
on
to be
Instagram. But
we seem to be really strong on Instagram.
as a whole, I think socials, yeah, in general, for bands, unsigned bands,
Yeah,
if you don't have socials, you're not going to get very far. I
no,
personally think.
I completely agree. I mean, obviously, we have our own sort of strategies on how we tackle obviously trying to get more popularity. I mean, with Facebook, we have to go down the advert route because I believe that's probably the only way you can do it. In terms of Instagram, I believe you can obviously put work in and get somewhere, but that's 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 another point. But in it, like Twitter used to be very, very good. I mean, I tend to use Twitter for the band now if I'm trying to contact somebody in the industry, maybe, and not
Yeah,
so much for promotional purposes, uh, because I believe that everybody sort of looks at Twitter, but don't really follow or interact
yeah.
anymore.
I find, and you probably find it as well in previous bands, that you don't
Yeah,
really get much traction from potential fans or anything like that on Twitter, unless
yeah,
you potentially building it up on something else, and then it falls down to Twitter. But
yeah,
it's a very good point that Twitter seems to me is just like one big sort of chat group. Like, it's just
yeah,
like chat room where you
yeah,
can just drop like a little tweet to like someone in the industry, and they'll see it,
yeah,
and then you can start talking that way and stuff like that. It's a very, I find it much more informal.
yeah,
When, like, Instagram for us, it's very much formal. It's like, we're selling an image. We're picking particular photos or images to put up, and kind of selling us as a brand kind of thing.
mhm. And it, like you say, it is interesting because it's a massive part of being in a band, making sure that your social profile looks amazing. I mean, there's some bands, we're obviously from Leicester, and there's some bands that me and you look at and we sort of admire their social presence. Bands like Mouth Culture, for example. I
Yeah,
think
I think
everything then guys put up just
we
looks utterly
yeah,
professional.
we
And
both agree on
yeah,
Mouth Culture's kind of worth ethic on
it's
socials, and
unbelievable.
if
Yeah,
any of them guys are listening to this,
yeah,
would love to have a chat with you guys on certain topics, or any
y-
sort of kind of local bands as well. Like, if
yeah,
get in touch with any of, like, me and Ash and stuff like that.
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree on the fact that their socials are very, very good.
It's just unreal. Everything that they sort of put out looks professional, looks like it's been done and been had a lot of money paid for it. When in fact we know it's probably not. It's just very
Yeah, it's
creative
very
work. And
creative, very hard work.
yeah,
I know of Jack,
yeah,
their singer, so I
yeah.
know sort of kind of the work ethic he will put into stuff. So yeah,
It's great. I mean,
a lot
yeah,
of credit to them guys.
yeah, absolutely big up to them with that. I mean, it's weird because you get certain bands with completely different strengths. I mean, like the next band I'm going to touch upon, and the next topic I was sort of going to pick up with you is sort of like local shows and everything like that. And you've got bands at the minute like our City Fires. Mate, when we go to their headline shows at the minute,
Oh
they're
yeah,
busy. You can't move in there. You know what
no,
I mean? So they're doing a smashing job.
before
Um,
before lockdown, I guess
yeah,
it like this does kind of bleed into the next topic we were really thinking about, was
yeah,
local shows in general.
yeah.
Like, that kind of is a great starting point. Like, our City Fires are a very good, very good Leicester band. They're good mates of ours. So
Hmm.
to go to their shows, probably like 3 years ago, and there was like 20 30 people there.
Yeah.
So now, like just before lockdown in January, me and Ash went to their show, and they're selling out the cookie. So
Yeah. And it's
that
just down
that
to
progression
sheer,
is really nice
yeah,
to see.
sheer progression, sheer like non-stop. They're always making sure that they're promoting their shows very well. Their members sort of message you directly to see if you come in, and there's just a lot of hard work that goes in from them guys in terms of their live shows, and I I admire them for that. I just think it's a massive effort.
So that with that point in mind, and
Yeah.
like falling back either onto ourselves or like getting into the mind of our City Fires or any sort of local band, how do you personally kind of promote or kind of target a local show, like
Um.
to kind of pull either numbers in through the door, or
Yeah.
how to kind of promote it on social media,
Yeah.
like for an unsigned band, be it new or kind of going, what would your kind of views be on that?
First of all, I always go for the bracket that I call the security blanket, which is friends, family, especially if we're playing in Leicester. If we're talking about local in terms of our own city, I'll always firstly target the people that I know will be at my show or interested in my show, and I'll drop them probably a message on Facebook, give them the date, tell them it's a pretty big deal for us, the gig, and would love you to be there and everything like that. And
Yeah,
then I move on to maybe the outside bracket then, which is sort of putting statuses up and seeing if there's any interest come in, like people reaching out to me like, oh, I didn't realize you were playing there on this day. Yeah, I'll have a ticket. Can you keep one to the side for me? Or can you send me the online link and I'll order one? That sort of bracket too that I do.
yeah,
And then approaching the show a bit closer to the time, bracket 3, then I'll just start of reaching out to people that I think may even just be interested in live music around Leicester, or people I've networked with in the past and things like that, and send them messages saying, we've got a show on this date, man. It'd be really nice to see tickets are this much, and it'll be
yeah,
great to have you down there. And then bracket 4 really is just sort of what I call natural sales, where somebody's got into the band over the
yeah.
internet.
Over
And
social media, again, that falls onto social, like, how
yeah,
important social media can be.
massive,
You can pick up a few
massive.
fans just naturally.
Yeah, and then they just order tickets off their own back, or they're there on the night without any involvement from any of the band members, which when you get to a certain stage, which I hope we do in the end, um that will happen naturally, and those kind of tickets start to overtake the family and friends and stuff, and then the
Yeah,
family and friends see that the gigs are starting to get busier and maybe drop off a little bit if they realize, oh, they're not relying on me to come anymore, or
yeah, like
not
natural
because they
fans
don't
looking at
want
it.
to,
No,
yeah, but it's just that people are very smart. They know. I watched an Australian band called the DMAs. The first time I watched them in front of 30 people at the Scholar Bar at the Leicester O2 Academy. The last time I went to watch them, they were playing in front of 1,300 people, and you couldn't move in there. So it's like, it just shows that it does happen. Like it can, natural growth can take over eventually, but
yeah,
at the stage we're at the minute, Kyle, at the minute it's very much hands on deck at
and
the minute.
yeah, it's very much
Yeah.
hands on.
So
You've got to do everything in your power as a band
yeah,
to kind of pull as many people as you can that
yeah,
you personally think would physically, enjoy your music, and not kind of, dragging them there by ransom or something like that. So you've got to
yeah,
try and target, you know, be it through adverts on social media, target people that might enjoy your music, because that was quite successful for ourselves when we did our O2 show last year, wasn't it,
yeah.
Ash?
It
We
was, yeah. I
did
mean,
a promotion on Instagram, kind
yeah,
of just saying about our O2 show, and we ended up pulling between 2 and 250 at the O2. So
exactly.
to us as an unsigned band, that's pretty successful. So social
Yeah,
media is massive, but then also we did have an August show coming up this year.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
lockdown is kind of put that up in kind of, with question marks over it.
Well, people are not willing to pay out for tickets
That's
at
what I
the minute,
mean.
are they, Kyle? Because they don't know if they're going to be able to come, or if this lockdown is going to be lifted, or so it's a lose lose really. It's a lose for the venue because they don't know what's happening. It's a lose for
Yeah,
the promoter because if it is happening, they still expect a certain work ethic from the band,
yeah.
and it's a lose for the band because obviously we don't even know at the minute, and
And people, I think, on the outside of being in a band think, okay, it's August.
Yeah.
It's only, well, it's only like, I'm losing track of days now. It's only
Middle of
April.
April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only April. That's a quite a long time. Like, lockdown could get lifted right around June, maybe. Why can't you do the August show potentially? But
Yeah.
the things that kind of go into a show that we want to kind of put on, we
Mhm.
generally kind of need to start practicing and putting, starting the set
Damn right. I
with
mean, you
Jamie, like the lighting guy and stuff like that, around about now.
yeah,
So like with lockdown, it's creating very difficult sort of situations. But
that's
on
it.
the flip side of local shows, I was saying what we were planning to do around, the summer sort of months leading to this show was flying around the city centre,
Yeah,
going to kind of, like club nights that people would like our music, handing out flyers there and stuff like that. Anything you can possibly do yourself to kind of get some interest whilst being in an
absolutely.
unsigned band. But obviously lockdowns make that very difficult now.
Yep. Networking is absolutely the key to getting your face or your music known around the local music scene, in my opinion. In locally, obviously, I know us going to gigs at the O2 or the Shed or the Sound House or the Musician is not going to make people in Nottingham know us. I'm well aware
No,
of that, but musicians are normally drawn towards these venues because they're very few and far between at the minute, and you start to get to know people and
yeah,
you talk. I've made it. Me and your friends because of music,
there
Kyle,
you go.
and
Yeah,
and that's just the way life works. When you're in a ring of people or an interest, you tend to get drawn to people and
that's
make
what I mean.
friends.
Like
Yeah,
you say, that really touches on kind of just a general main topic as like networking.
yeah,
So like you say, like obviously we wouldn't be friends if it wasn't for music. Our paths probably wouldn't have crossed.
no,
Like just because you were in a different school year, we've got a bit of an age gap,
mhm,
so we would have never really met if it
no,
wasn't for earlier bands. And that's where it kind of comes from. Networking obviously is a massive thing. Obviously it's a
exactly,
no brainer. Like if you don't network in a band, you're not really going to get very far,
no.
like in the local scene or outside of the local scene.
Even networking in terms of me and you, for example, going to shows, because I know me, you, and a couple of the lads really like to show our face at
Yeah, I
these
think it's
all day
just,
festivals and
yeah,
gigs.
I
And
think it's a nice thing. Like
yeah,
if you can show effort, and we actually enjoy going to local things like local
yeah,
shows and showing an interest in local music. You'd hope by showing your face, people will start picking that up, and you become friends with other local artists and local bands and stuff. And
that's
it's a
it.
big
I
thing.
mean,
Like I don't want it to come across in the local scene. Bands and artists nationwide, worldwide, shouldn't
yeah,
be in their local scene shouldn't be against each other really.
no,
Like
I
shouldn't
mean,
be viewed as a competition. It should be, let's just support each other in certain ways. So like
oh,
if we can do our bit by going to these local shows and all day festivals to support Leicester's scene, then why not?
exactly. I mean, you touched on a great point there in terms of competition. I mean, thank heavens, finally, I do believe that all the competitions that were being run in the city that was creating any sort of rivalry between bands has absolutely had the stuffing knocked out of them because they've all been completely exposed. This is my personal opinion. Some people
Yeah,
have gained great experience from competitions, and if you disagree with me, then it's fine. But I just personally believe that it was getting to the stage that it was creating tension between acts. I mean, I was an 18-year-old kid, and I did feel jealousy as a 18 towards other bands that had probably done better than us in a competition or
yeah,
something like that. Whereas now, when I go to shows, I go because I want to be there.
yeah,
I'm enjoying watching this music. I'm not. If I was on the bill, it's not that I'm competing. We're all there to put one good show on,
yeah.
and we care about every act on the bill instead of we're against this act tonight. So let's do everything we can to try and make you know and I just think networking is absolutely huge.
It
we've
is
got
huge.
we've been going to a club night ambush at the Shed, which is
Yeah.
great, by the way, and absolute hats off to Elizabeth at the Shed who's turned that place around something magical. But
Well, yeah, I guess that is just a quick thing to like you say, like to everyone at the Shed. It's like
yeah,
if it really wasn't for Liz
yeah,
and her team, the Shed was going to be knocked down and turned
yeah,
into flats. So
yeah,
that's what was going to happen. So like, we've still, as a local scene, we need these venues to kind of thrive. And obviously, even
Absolutely.
during lockdown now, the places will struggle.
Yeah,
After lockdown, we need to kind of really pump stuff into the local scene from
definitely.
from the starting from the bands, booking local shows and stuff like that, and helping each other.
Definitely. I mean, we've even made friends in terms of like look at the guys from Long Way Home. Kyle,
Oh yeah,
I feel like I've known some of them years.
yeah.
I've met them 3 4 times at Ambush, and we've just ended up having a good night and drinking. And I just feel
Well,
like I've
I
known.
guess the first time we met them was our Leicester show, the Shed, and they
Yep,
opened it, and they
and they've
didn't
done a
know who we were.
stomping job.
We didn't
Yeah.
know who they were. They got booked by the kind of the booking agency we were working with at the time.
Yep.
Uh, but then, yeah, like straight away, we just became friends from them playing the show. Obviously, they were probably a relatively newer band, and I guess at the time we were a new band, really. But I guess what you guys have been through a few bands in kind of
Mhm.
Life Formula One and Reckless Youth, and
Yep.
myself, Flip Wilson. Uh,
Yep.
but yeah, like straight away we just became friends with them guys, and then obviously had some great nights at Ambush, and it's all about networking with bands, becoming
Damn right.
friends, and then just helping each other out.
Because last time we were there, we were even introduced to some of their friends, which were talking about music too and what they were into, and it just starts from there. And then that is where the networking falls into sort of the bracket 3 hours on about, which is sort of getting in touch with people that you think might be interested. You'll
Yeah,
feel more comfortable to approach them if you've met them in
there you
person
go.
on
Yeah,
these nights
it
out.
kind
So
of breaks the barrier of trying to force your way into a like straight away just going boom, check my band out and hand in a flyer. It can be
yeah,
very daunting to some people, but if
yeah,
it can just be like a pretty chill sort of, oh, you're just out in a club, have and everyone there enjoys the same sort of music that you play and you listen to as well,
hmm
creates a much nicer vibe to kind of
definitely.
get people to come to your show.
What's your views then on playing out of town, KP? Because obviously we've been speaking about networking and
Yeah,
playing shows
and I
in your
think
home city. Do
yeah,
you
I think
believe that you need, unless you're playing with a band of a certain stature, you need to have
I
a
think there's
certain size reputation before you start doing this, or
a bit of both really. I think there's two paths you can take personally,
yeah,
and obviously I'm not coming from someone that's like, oh, he's been doing it so long and stuff like that. It's coming from
hmm
just my experiences of like the limited, like personally myself, the limited sort of kind of shows I've done outside of like Leicester,
hmm
but especially in this band and obviously meeting yourself,
yeah,
uh, kind of understanding the paths you can take. So you could take one path and play outside of your hometown, like your home city, as much as possible. Do like 2 shows a month, like outside of your home city. I find that path is a slower sort of kind of gaining fans. So
yeah,
you might go to London and play with just again an unsigned band from London, and you might play to the bar staff, and you've paid like 20-30 quid on fuel and stuff like that, and has it really been worth your while?
we've personally have well experienced that,
We've
haven't we?
experienced that, yeah,
So
and it's the risk you take. But then on the flip side, you could through networking end up getting a gig swap, and you could go to London and play in front of 100 people,
yeah,
and that's going to be damn right like worthwhile. Like you've just played to 100 strangers that half of them, 20 of them could really like you, and then there's 20 new fans.
exactly. 20 likes on Facebook, or
There
if
you
they're
go.
into Instagram, 20 likes on
So
Instagram, and
so kind of wrapping that up in my head, I think personally, like at a level of an unsigned band that no one knows you outside of like your hometown, you've got to try and get on some shows outside of your city with bands that that can pull a bit of a following, and then you
mhm,
might say, well, you're just taking their fans and they're not getting anything from you. And that's where networking comes from. If you can get gig swaps,
of course.
so like
And
if you
the
can get on a few shows with a band from a certain city, and then there's another band. So that there's three of you. You play one city on a Friday, you play to a crowd. You play another city on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday you play your city, and then everyone's winning.
Yeah.
So I think,
I completely agree.
yeah,
I mean, if you
there's,
all sort of throw your city in the hat and network between the three of you, that you're going to put a stompingly good show on and get some people down to your hometown. I mean, there's one thing that sort of that does grate on me a little bit, and it is bands that are from a city that just make no effort to promote and have the ignorant attitude of, um, oh, you there's a promoter in place for that. No,
yeah,
this is 2020. We're not in the 70s or 80s in Thin Lizzy time anymore,
no,
where promoters could go around working men's clubs and get lorry loads of fans to be interested in something that they hadn't heard before. That doesn't work anymore. You've got to, unfortunately, in
no.
a band,
I
you've
think
got to put a lot of hard work in.
I think a role of a promoter now, in my eyes, is that they will put the gigs on. They
Yeah.
will get you that slot at a particular stage, or
Hmm.
if a relatively good band's come into your city, and they'll put you on the list of potentially opening for them or stuff like that. Or even if it's your show, they're putting you on. That's your way through the door to get that gig.
Yeah.
It's not down to them to bring people. Like, I don't personally think it's down to the band to bring people.
No, no, definitely. I mean, like you say, mate, and I agree with you in terms of I think a promoter's job now is just sort of to get the bands on the bill, sort the venue out, let them know what cut they're taking and everything like that. Probably throw a poster together and say to the bands, right, I've
Yeah,
done it, get on with it. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean?
pretty much. And I think, like, the difference between, like, I guess a good and a bad promoter. I guess a bad promoter would sling six bands on a bill, completely different styles, and then the gig's a car crash. I think a
Horrid.
good
Yeah,
promoter will put a bit of thought into it, saying like, okay, this band's pop punk. I'll put two other pop punk bands on and make it a
yeah,
pop punk night, and try and
yeah,
sell it that way. But then it's also down to the bands to
yeah,
not have the mindset of turning up and like, where's the crowd?
yeah.
Yeah,
I agree
it
with you
doesn't work like that
completely.
anymore.
The 15, the days of 15, 20-minute sets and using the headline band's instruments from band one to band seven is just an absolute disgrace. And I think that is something that does need stomping out of the game, because not only is the headline band's kit getting trodden all over, which we've been the headline band, but we've also been that band that's used
Like
some
using
kit
other
before.
people's, yeah, and
Yeah,
I generally hate using other people's kit
yeah,
because I
yeah,
know the position I'm in when potentially another five drummers are going to hit my kit.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm happy to people to use stuff. It's just having that sort of kind of, I guess, in a promoter's eye, kind of slimming down what other people use. Like, obviously, like the tour we did last year, generally everything was told to other bands that everything would be available of ours, which
yeah.
wasn't really the case. Like, we agreed with
Well,
the
it
promoter.
ended up a nightmare, didn't it? I mean,
Just a little bit.
let's face it, we had probably 30% of the whole kit fried. It was absolutely fried by the end of tour. And
Yeah,
for members that have still got 9 till 5 jobs, having to replace it for somebody else to play on your instruments, I personally, some people
it's not
don't
good
see the
practice, is it?
bugbear, but I personally don't think it is. But again, that's an opinion thing that
Of course.
everybody will have their say on, and some people will even have their say on sort of the massive 7 band bills. I mean, I get big band bills if it's an all day thing.
All day.
And
If it's an all
uh,
dayer, then yeah, like
yeah,
you want
yeah,
at least 20 bands. The doors
yeah,
open at 1, and then finish
yeah.
at 11 or 10 or
And
something like
everyone
that.
gets a good steady slot, but
Yeah,
sort of a night starting at 8 o'clock, and then the last band's meant to go on at 10, but because of changeovers and stuff, they end
then
up doing the
more.
graveyard shift. I
Yeah,
just think it's unfair.
yeah. That's where I think a promoter's kind of job lies, is booking the right bands.
Yeah,
And like, I think I'm going to name drop again for the local scene. I think one of the best promoters that like we've got in Leicester at the minute, and for the past good amount of years, is
Nik Sharpe.
Nick
Yeah,
Sharpe. Yeah, so
absolutely. He's
I think
smashing
he's
it.
doing great things for Leicester.
In fact, we book our shows with him for our headline shows, and I just want to tap my hat off to him that he, as a promoter, actually steps in and says, "We're having no more than 3 acts on a night."
Yeah.
That's just great. That's just, I think it's magic, and I think that practice
Well,
needs to carry on
that's
through
what I
and
mean.
through.
He was one of the first people as a new band, unsigned
Yeah,
band for ourselves. He was one of the first people that kind of took I guess, a chance on us. Really,
he did.
like like one of our first gigs was opening for As It Is. So
Well, when I sit and think about that now, that it just blows me away that
yeah,
that
it's a
was
bit of
our
a proud
first
moment.
live gig
Yeah.
as a band.
So it
But
was definitely daunting, like,
yeah,
playing in front of real fans that, that love As It Is, and you're
yeah,
the first band on a four bill night,
yeah,
and you're expecting, oh, okay, we're going to play to like 10 because no one's going to turn up for us, like
yeah.
they're here for As It Is. But
It
we
was
played to like
rammed,
what,
wasn't it?
150 at least, I think it was.
At least
So
it was
it was a
awesome,
great
mate.
night. So
And
yeah, props to Nick.
since then he's been putting great days on as well. Like we went to the O2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
okay,
Together
we've just
Festival.
talked about we've just talked about 7-8 band bills, but that was one done right.
That was an
That
all
was
dayer.
Yeah, you've still got 30-40 minutes set. You've seen every band wheel their own kit on and off,
Yeah,
other than maybe like the drum shells, which I
shelves and
was
stuff like that. Yeah.
guessing provided by the venue. But no, honestly, I completely agree. And
But yeah,
like,
I think Nick and the guys at the Shed are the two sort of two teams that are doing great things for Leicester. The
definitely. I
Shed.
mean, the Cookies is a solid little venue as well.
Well,
I mean,
I guess that's
yeah,
Nick as well, isn't it?
yeah,
So
isn't it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
But
I
but
guess
that's no way am I at them like slandering the other venues because
of course
they're all
not.
magical in their
No,
own way.
I just
But
think
yeah,
Nick in general and the Shed are
yeah,
doing a lot of hard work behind the scenes for
definitely.
a small venue like the Shed, and the small team, and probably the funds they do have to
Yeah,
get people like Mallory Knox and Rome that we were allowed to open for as well.
yeah.
Bands like that to the Shed is a real coup.
Great team, great business minds, and I just think great people as well, which is attracting people wanting to actually go and play there.
So just I think moving on from sort of that, it kind of
Yeah,
just talking about good promoters, bad promoters, well, not even bad promoters, just people that probably have a bit more thought,
yeah,
and obviously giving credit to Nick and the team at the Shed.
yeah,
That kind of moves me on, like, to a question I kind of had for you
yeah,
was, because like people like Nick and like Liz and the team at the Shed and other venues like the Sound House, uh, the Cookie, like we've got great venues, Firebug. But do you think, be it like, I guess the first question would be for more like independent venues, to kind of for you to answer.
yeah.
But do you think like the industry higher up should be doing more in the sense for independent venues, be it
Absolutely.
like more like different fundings or schemes for venues? Because over your time and my time, we've seen quite a few kind of,
Closed down.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this ties in the last 2 points that we were going to talk about. I mean, they fall into pretty much the same bracket in my eyes, Kyle. And I think that things like sports get funding programs, things like,
That's what I mean. I'm just going to
you
stop you
know,
right there quickly, like, because that's a great point. Like the sport thing, like
yeah,
you see, like grassroots football
yeah,
have money injected into them and have academies and have schemes to try and get people playing, Sunday league to the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step, until
hmm,
like 10 years down the line, they're playing Premier League football.
of course.
But
And
is there schemes like that for venues to get bigger and better and expand and become like maybe like a franchise? Imagine the Shed in 10 years' time having
yeah,
like 5 venues across the country
because they would, because
because they've been
it
a new
funded
scheme or
right.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, and there was something at the grassroots level to get young musicians to start getting that confidence or have the affordability or the exposure to go out and do it.
yeah.
Like I say, touching on the Shed again, they for years and years and years, and I think they've just brought it back. They
The
do the
Saturday afternoons.
Saturday afternoons for the
Yeah.
youngsters. I mean, that is a
Well,
fully self-funded thing from the Shed that
yeah.
they do for the grassroots. I
That's
mean,
just quickly. That's how I started myself.
yeah, yeah,
So,
that's it's
my first
magical,
gig
man.
was a Saturday afternoon when I was like 12 at the Shed.
Yeah.
So,
And I just think
I
that
think more needs to be done
it
personally
does. It does. All these
to kind of interest younger people and invite
yeah,
younger people to pick up a guitar. And
yeah. And but I understand where the venues are coming from, because they're not going to put these kind of things on unless they know they're going to at least cover the costs.
well, yeah,
And
like
this
at
is
the end,
where funding needs to come into it.
yeah,
Funding needs to come into it, and it needs to be made again that, we as a system or whatever, or a council or local authority, are putting X amount into young guitar classes free, so people can go and learn guitars or go and learn the drums. Or
yeah,
if you've got an interest in music, like the councils pay for free tickets for them to go and watch a couple of the favorite bands, just to give them that
yeah.
sort of spark that makes them want to do it. I mean, I do believe that funding in music, from venues to promoters to bands to kids wanting to do it, needs to be improved, and massively.
I think that that leads on to a good point. Whilst we're in this lockdown, like
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, like majority of, not, if not the world, has lost a lot of freedom right now. Like there's very little you can do. Obviously, you're staying isolated and whatnot.
Hmm.
A lot of people have moved to the arts. Be it listening to music or watching films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it shows how important the art sector
It's,
is.
it's huge,
And then you
huge, Kyle. I
get
mean,
certain people through your kind of be it unsigned career saying, oh, when you're going to get a proper job, or when you're going to do this, or when you like, it's just a hobby, isn't it?
yeah,
But it shows how many people are looking to the arts for some
yeah.
sort of excitement whilst you can't
That
leave the house.
that one comment that you have just said there. I mean, I work 9 till 5 myself. I've worked 9 till 5 since I was 17 years old. But that comment of, it's just a hobby, isn't it? That infuriates me to the point. If somebody wants to dedicate their whole life and their whole time in trying to be the bracket two that we were talking about earlier when we were setting up a band, and has that focus that they're willing to sort of take the financial loss themselves, because let's face it, whilst you're on the road to it, you probably are going to go through a time of financial uncertainty,
Of course,
getting
yeah.
to a level. Then don't I hate the judgment of, oh, it's just a hobby though, isn't it? Like, you know no,
No, it's
it's
not.
not
It's
a
really
hobby to
not.
some people. It is to some people. It is
Yeah,
that
and then that's where
they
you.
meet their mates, have a few beers down
Yeah,
the practice room, play one gig every 3-4 months in Leicester, and enjoy it.
yeah,
But then there are that bracket of people that genuinely want to make it. Let me tell
it's
you
their love.
something,
Yeah,
Kyle. If I could, Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday, go around the country playing to venues, and it pay me the wage that I'm earning from my workplace at the minute, I promise you my notice would be in work tomorrow.
yeah.
But
I'll be there with you. It's a no-brainer.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
right at this point, obviously, you make it big and stuff like that, and all the money and that obviously would be great, but it's
yeah,
it's unrealistic to the point where you like don't aim for that, like, or
yeah,
or you'll fail. Like
but yeah,
aim for like I want to do this because I love it, and I would like this to be my job. A
hmm,
job doesn't need to mean like you're selling out the Wembley Arena and you're making
no,
millions. But
no,
if I was making you know my weekly wage that I make
yeah.
working in a factory, but I was doing, I was playing live music and being a band. Uh, yeah, I'd have no complaints with that.
I mean, look at the bands, the size that me and you were into very much at the minute, like Dream State, and yours truly, a
Yeah,
band that's now traveling around the world using their art and their craft, but you can tell that they're still living in normal homes. Then they're not rich. They're not rich. They're
no,
probably earning
of
enough to
course
get
not.
by, and that would be
And
magical for me.
I totally agree with that. Like, they're not at that point where they're living the life of luxury, but
No,
they're loving what they're doing because they're being able to get their music around the world, and that's their job. But
yeah,
things like a lockdown with a band that sort of level can be
it
very
must be
damaging,
hell. It must be hell. I
because
mean,
obviously they've got they would have had kind of tours and shows booked and stuff, and like
yeah,
merch bought ready to go for them tours, and obviously
yeah,
now tours have been cancelled. They've got probably boxes and boxes full of merch that they need to push, or they're going to be, down thousands.
This is it, you see, and the same even while we're talking today on a podcast, Kyle. When lockdown wasn't happening, was a podcast even an idea for Oceans Apart?
Nope.
Or absolutely not. We're just sitting and thinking in what I'd like to call our artistic minds of any way we can still communicate and get people interested and try and drag people together more. So I think that's the aim.
Yeah, I think we kind of touch on the main sort of topics that we had in mind over the unsigned music scene.
Yep.
And I guess one last thing I say, like, again, just dropping another sort of kind of program that does a lot for unsigned bands is Dean Jackson and the
Wow.
team at BBC
Yeah.
introducing
Massive.
the amount of artists that have come through that and now are making it into the mainstream sort of kind of industry
Yeah.
is ridiculous. And yeah, if it wasn't for Dean, even for bands like us, giving us the time of day, he played us 7 or 8 times last year.
Yeah.
He's played the new stuff as well.
Mm.
Gave us interviews, even gave us opportunities like the gigs in the garden.
Played at the Montfort Hall,
Yeah, and I
on a
think that
festival stage that the Kaiser Chiefs had played on, and
there you go.
and
And
bands like Busted and
I think
mate,
that
surreal.
falls into the, like, people like Dean and BBC introducing are doing their bit, but there's only so much if there's things in the higher up in the industry. Dean can't fund it himself. BBC introducing probably wouldn't be able to fund it themselves. To keep doing things like this to help unsigned acts. And I think
Massive.
people higher up in the industry, be it labels and stuff like that, will start to try and look at kind of how do we get the next best, the next best thing. Let's try and help unsigned kind of artists and bands and putting
Imagine
on
if
these
all
things.
if all these radios and all these labels put a program on like BBC introducing. So you've got BBC introducing at the minute, sat there, that accepts all genres of music, which is absolutely fantastic, right? And it's great because I've heard from the spectrum of solo artists to bands to techno to rappers on Dean's show, which is
Everything.
amazing because he doesn't criticize against what style of music you are at all. But imagine if these like popular radio stations like Radio X or BBC Radio 1 Extra had their specific own programs for sort of the genre specific, then you're going to get a lot more gems come through, aren't you? And I think his idea and the BBC introducing program idea is something that could be ironed out and could get a lot more people into the limelight. So,
I agree. I definitely agree. I think
no,
people like Dean, and yeah, just generally speaking, like, if more things like that could look at, obviously I don't know into the funding of the side of things and how that would work, but if people are up there, even having the thought process of trying to set things like that up,
yeah,
or having like more unsigned sort of bands or a sector at more festivals. I know BBC get at like Glastonbury and Reading and stuff like that,
yeah,
but like I know Kerrang have a stage at Slam Dunk, I believe, and also
yeah,
Download.
yeah.
But like
I mean,
even wider than that, having potentially Kerrang having a present, Kerrang present stage at Reading Festival. I don't know if
it'd
that's
be
a thing,
great.
or
Like I
BBC
know,
being at Slam Dunk and Download as well.
yeah, because I know Alex Bakerman sort of does the fresh blood thing.
Yeah,
But if that sort of could be ironed across and be made a little bit more, where you was urged to submit your music and stuff like that, I think that would
I think
be
stuff
massive as well.
like that though, like where the small teams are doing things for unsigned bands is crucial to try
Yeah,
and, because every band you like and every band I like and every band that everybody likes was a nobody at one point.
yeah.
So obviously it's things that are bringing people through. BBC again, shouting out a Leicester band that's killing it right now is Easy Life.
Oh wow,
Uh,
yeah. Well, they just
and
literally
that was
exploded through BBC
that was
introducing, didn't they?
BBC and
Yeah,
Nik Sharpe. They kind of helped that
yeah.
sort of kind of push through, and now look at them. They're killing it.
Seriously, well done. I mean, even again, like we talk about the mid-range bands, been together probably a couple of years longer than us, KP, but bands like Arcades as well who are doing very well in the hometown shows,
Yeah,
and
again,
getting out
they're
there and
putting
doing
a big
everything they want.
crowd at O2 sort of size venues now, like the
Yeah,
O2
yeah,
at Leicester. They pulled a 300 strong crowd,
yeah. Fair
uh,
play to them. Fair
doing
play to
Europe
them.
shows and stuff like that. So that's what I mean. Like on the unsigned local and even unsigned, just unsigned in general,
Yeah.
it's is a strong scene, and I think be it some help from people higher up with the venues, so venues can probably book more unsigned bands and not lose out because unsigned bands don't really get paid a fee,
No,
like unless you're at a certain point, because we personally as a band don't have a massive following yet,
no, of course
and
not. I mean,
people like I guess majority of Leicester bands don't have a massive following outside of Leicester or even
no,
in Leicester. So venues are not going to able to pay like a fee of like two,
no,
300, £400 per band
no.
to put a show on, because the venue would close. So
Of course, and we don't. That's the last thing we want to avoid. Over our times of being musicians, Kyle, we've seen these venues fall, like the Charlotte. We had one called Sub 91 for it that lasted about 2-3 months. One called the Auditorium, which was a old bingo hall, which closed down straight away. I've heard a few times about even the musician being under threat, and that's really sad because that's a venue that I've grew up going to watch bands in it, albeit I know that they are promoting sort of cover bands a lot more now, sort of cover bands of sort
yeah,
of
and
classic
I,
rock
I
and stuff
guess it's
like
any
that.
like for each venue, you do,
Anything to keep the
yeah.
doors open.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Anything to keep afloat,
yeah,
whilst there's nothing higher up helping these venues out. If
yeah.
there's any schemes and stuff, and
And Soundhouse had their strength of the Glaston Budget auditions. They've well and truly took Glaston Budget into their arms, and
yeah,
and that's keeping their venue nice and busy. So well
that's
done
what I
to
mean.
you all.
Touching on the Shed as well. Like I was talking to Tom, the manager there,
Yeah,
and Tom Cornell, uh, and he was saying like some of the bands they book. I'm not going to name drop or anything like that. Like, but like bands that are kind of doing it as their job and not like unsigned or anything, but going on to like not independent venues and stuff like that. They were booking certain bands and they wanted to book certain rooms. Like obviously the Shed's got downstairs and upstairs,
of course.
and Tom was saying that the fee they were asking for, like originally, like was more than what the Shed could ever profit on because of the cap of the venue, like
This is what I
how many
mean.
people
It's
can be in. So it's just like that. I guess not ignorance from certain level bands, and obviously they've got gonna have management and labels behind them.
yeah,
But it's like if you're doing that as that sort of level band, and you're not even that big, like you're not like Bring Me level or Ghost or anything like that,
yeah.
or Biffy or anything like that. Like you're playing, 100 cap venue, like in a city. So
Then don't demand. Yeah,
like demanding
exactly.
certain fees that a venue could possibly not take, but like it's either say yes and get the band there, and you know you're going to lose money or try and make money on the bar, or you say no and you can't get any good, new bands come into your venue to pull a crowd. So they're in like a lose-lose situation. So I think it's kind of it goes to the higher up sort of kind of people having
Yeah,
just a bit more of a
definitely.
thought insight. Independent venues, if that kept on happening, like if the fee's too much, they can't book bands. If they can't book bands, they can't pull a crowd. Can't pull a crowd, you're going to close.
Yeah,
So I
that's what I
think
mean. It
everyone in
is
the
tough.
industry, from the this like unsigned grassroots to higher up, has got to be a bit more, help these venues out, help these bands out, and
It does need that,
whilst going along, do what you can as an unsigned band as well yourself.
definitely.
You got anything else to touch on, or is that
I
kind of
mean,
wraps
that's
up what we
to
got
be honest, that is
today?
absolutely everything for me. I mean, I think it's been a really interesting chat, and again, it's sort of opened my eyes on things that I've even dealt with in the past and made me think, wow, yeah, I'd forgotten about that, and touching on everybody's point of view with everything. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
been a great chat,
I
and
think.
I hope on the next couple of topics that maybe we can even get some guests in from other
Yeah, I
bands.
was gonna say, like, obviously this is a new thing that we want to try as a band, but I guess 7 episodes deep, you don't want to hear me and Ash and possibly the other chaps from Oceans Apart just chinwagging for an hour. So like
Yeah,
if because it's a new thing, if any band, any artist, yeah, it'd be great to kind of get from the local scene or even slightly outside of Leicester, trying to
yeah.
get on and just build up, be it
It'd be
through
fantastic. I
lockdown,
mean, if
just keeping
yeah,
busy.
if you've got to that stage where you've listened to the podcast, to this point where we're asking for people to get involved, I'd love it. Even if it's our mates bands like sort of our City Fires, Long Way Home, Mouth
Yeah,
Culture, any of you guys, or even bands outside the city, like
yeah,
As December Falls, we're going on tour with them personally as a band.
yeah,
So I'd love to hear even one of them guys jump in and talk about their experience, because
yeah. Just that's
their
what I mean.
social media is
Yeah,
massive.
that
So
that is
yeah,
massive. So it'd be great,
yeah,
like not even to get sort of hidden tips or anything. Obviously, that's their each band
prerogative.
have
Yeah,
their own thing and how they work on it or what they spend, and that's down to them. But even just to get experiences of being in a band and any sort of kind of outside view from other band members and stuff like that, and just have a chat
yeah,
whilst in lockdown, so we don't go insane.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Brilliant. No, like I say, thanks for having me, Kyle. I know me and you
Yeah, I
will be
guess this is going to be a
primarily
main thing
jumping
with me
it.
and you
Yeah, and
anyway. And
Jordan
Jordan
will be
wants to.
joining us most
The other two
times as
chaps
well.
would, but they're still at work.
Yeah, they're still
They're
working.
being forced to work. So
But then if we can get some guests on at the same time, that'd be amazing. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's been lovely. Thank you.
it certainly has. I'm gonna go eat some lunch.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone.
Yes. See you soon.